Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Lost In. Today we'll be covering another small niche Brazilian car manufacturer. Now down here back in the 70s and also in the United States, people were really into making kit cars. As a donor car, oftentimes the VW Bug was used, but down here in Brazil it was a little bit different. You see, Brazil had strict laws on importation. Basically, from the 60s on, they did not import cars into Brazil. And still to this day, if you want to import a car, it has to be 30 years older, and they're going to charge you 90% taxes on that. So it's very difficult. And car manufacturers just weren't going to do it. Brazil wanted to be auto-sufficient. They weren't looking to import other cars. So a lot of these car manufacturers oftentimes would use donor cars from either a Chevy or the Brazilian VWs. Oftentimes they would use the Brasilia. It was a little bit more boxy wide than the Volkswagen Bug. And I'm going to touch on another small car manufacturer that back in the early 70s through the late 80s did just that. They came up with a really neat design, and I'm going to tell you about it. Late 1970s, Rio de Janeiro. A man named Vladimir Martins, the dude, formerly owner and creator of Woody Buggies. These things are ridiculously cool. And the designer of the Baby Lio. It's a little funny looking, but it's cool. This dude ended up building his first car at that time, which was named the WMV. Named it after himself. Ego. This was a small, petite, two-seater racer that got its design cues strikingly similar to that of the Maserati, and that came from the creator himself, Mr. Martins. This was a totally cool, reinforced fiberglass plastic body about 1.15 meters in height, mounted on the VW Brasilia platform, needing no mechanical or dimensional changes to the Brasilia's chassis, featuring edgy, attractable pop-up headlights. I love them! And to balance the tail, they use the taillights from a Ford Maverick. I love it! Leather bucket seats, leather trimmed dash, and center console. It had electric windows, it even had a thermal heated back window. And of course, AC was a big thing back in the 70s, and it had that too. This was a complete modern vehicle ready to take on the Brazilian automotive market. In 1982, the WMV was replaced by the WM2, and this was also a two-seater with pop-up headlights. It had way different aesthetic features, especially in the side ventilation grills. In the B column, it had this beautiful cut that went all the way down to the rocker panels. Totally sci-fi looking, way cool. A new engaging instrument panel, a fancy-dancy spoiler to boot, and they added a false grille in the front, which is always quasi-cool. For this one, they used the taillights from the Chevrolet Opala. As in the WMV, WM2 used a Brasilia chassis, completely unchanged, but a platform structure of reinforced fiberglass plastic. Only about 55 of these were ever manufactured. In 1983, at the first alcohol automotive fair here in Brazil, the company, already called Publicidade Indústria Comercial, launched a completely new vehicle, also designed by Mr. Martins himself. Now a two-seater convertible, front engine utilizing the Opala, and this one had the awesome name of Savannah, mounted on its own platform about 75 centimeters shorter of the Opala. And it took complete advantage of all the mechanical elements of the Opala. The Savannah could be supplied with a 2.5 liter or a 4.0 liter gasoline or alcohol engine. 4 or 5 speed automatic or manual transmissions were available. The reinforced plastic body received the Opala's tail lights and the Ford Del Rey instrument panel. Mwah! Fancy! To boot, it had velvet lined seats. There was a canvas top. A removable hardtop was also available. In 1986, the Savannah was passed on to Pi Automotives, which relaunched it with the name Equus. fancy. This was a two-seater convertible, and it was launched at the 14th Motor Show in São Paulo. Once again, the body was molded in plastic reinforced fiberglass with a tubular chassis this time. It had a wide and flat rear, which sought to recall the German sports models of like Mercedes-Benz. The Equus was the updated version of the Savannah, but they redesigned the grille and the headlights, and it did come in 3 flavors. 3 flavors. You get 3 flavors, sir. The VS with a fixed hardtop, the VSX with a removable hardtop, or the VX with a canvas convertible top, which did recline and was stored behind a fiberglass covering behind the seats. The number of options was large. There were a lot of different things you could do. Power steering, which electric mirrors and locks, air conditioning, that was an option, and velvet lining, fancy. A refrigerator, bar, and telephone were also available. Party! Only a few units of these were ever really manufactured. The body molds were used in the Lasso convertible, but even those had small sales. And like so many of these small little niche car companies, once the economic crisis hit Brazil in the mid-80s, they evaporated. Poof! Gone. And that was it. After that, the cars became more homogenized and big manufacturers really were the only ones that could take over. The same thing happened in North America, but down here it was a little different. The car culture was more into these little kit cars. It was more part of the culture down here. It wasn't just Chevy and Ford and Volkswagen that were building cars. Anybody that had the passion to do it was able to open a small car manufacturer. Today, we still have some small coach builders amongst us, but nothing as prolific as the 70s. Well, that's basically it for now. This was a short one. I really appreciate you for stopping by. Please subscribe, give a thumbs up, and share this with somebody that might like automotive videos. And until next time, ciao, até a próxima.